Hey kids, welcome to Kyle and Snorlax's Cult Cinema Cast, the home of the unwanted, the unloved, and the unappreciated. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Cody.
Yeah, I'm sitting across from a Snorlax right now, so that's what the joke was. Yeah, there's just a Snorlax sitting behind my mic.
Not a very good joke for audio files, I guess.
No, but I wanted to do it. Yeah, it's this entire thing is what I want to do, less what's like practical and very effective. This entire operation is on the whims of a madman, if you haven't noticed. So yeah, sorry about the audio issues this week. Cody's having some computer troubles. Yeah, just nothing we can do about it if we want the episode out on time. So yeah, this week we're doing Breakfast Club. So yeah, this is Cody had seen this before, I hadn't. So this was my first time seeing the movie yesterday night. Yeah, this is a night.
It does have its own cult following, technically.
Oh yeah, this is like very like this permeated like the national consciousness very well. This is like you see references to this everywhere. A lot of these are like classic archetypes you see throughout the I'll say Western canon, to be over dramatic. Even if you've never seen the movie, you know a lot about you've recognized some of the characters.
Quote.
And I believe this is a 1985 movie by director John Hughes. I believe this is his second film after 16 Candles, which is another very popular film. But yeah, this stars the cast of what's coming to be known as the Brat Pack, which Brat Pack might have been a better name for this movie, actually. Because
they never figure out, and maybe I'm just like missing something, but they never really stated where they got the name The Breakfast Club from.
No, I was expecting them to go for breakfast at some point. They ate lunch in this.
I guess the lunch club doesn't have as much of a ring to it as the Breakfast Club, but
yeah, it's weird. Like people have called this the Brat Pack, and that's actually a way better name for this movie, I think.
That's fair.
At least more sensible. I thought this was going to be like have something to do with breakfast. There's no pancakes or anything.
No.
This stars Molly Ringwald, Ali Speedy, Judd Nelson, Emilio Estevez, and Anthony Michael Hall, who make up our Brat Pack. This has a 7.9 on IMDb, an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 62% on Metacritic. This is very well rated, actually. But
no, I was just saying that is probably the best rated film we've done so far, at least by Rotten Tomato standards.
I don't know. Avengers might have been higher, but yeah, this is like definitely the most respected film that we've done.
And we also have to ask ourselves, is the Avengers movie that we did actual canon?
Yeah, I know. We did it. We can't ignore that. We'll try to correct that eventually, but so yeah, this has a really nice return on it. It's a $1 million budget to a $50 million box office. So that's a nice little return there.
It is, but how do they... Okay. I guess it's $1 million also in 1985 times, but like, I want to see that breakdown, because like, they shot this in like a one-room film, like, I guess a school.
Yeah, I did say some critics saying this was basically a stage play put to film, which isn't inaccurate. Well, there's lots of good films like that. I mean, like Hateful Eight's basically a stage play too, and that's a really good film.
Yeah,
and like you could show this in high school. You could have like a high school play of this or something. Although you probably can't because you need to have more than 6 cast members. 7. Well, I mean, I guess it's maybe a dozen cast members, but only 7 of them actually do anything.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to swing that past the principle that you had like a dozen members cast and only 6 of them have any lines.
And also, I don't know how I didn't take theater or any form of theatrical extracurricular activities except for maybe I took drama in high school, but anything outside of that I didn't do. So my question is can you actually swear in plays?
Um, this was my experience. Um, you can, yeah, you at least
Okay.
at my school they got away with a little bit of it. Maybe not as harsh as what we see in this film, but like
Yeah.
definitely some PG rated swear words occasionally. They did have to cut them out for when they did the like showing for like the elementary school kids, which they would do. But yeah, you could
Hmm.
do a little bit of swearing. You could, and I mean, it's nothing to like replace an f bomb with a I don't know, a damn or a heck. I don't know. It's not that. It wouldn't be that
Yeah.
hard to edit this down if you really for a play if you really wanted to. They might, yeah, they might not let you do the weed though.
No, probably
I
not.
I did, although the high school production of Grease I saw did let there be cigarettes on stage. So,
Hmm.
but we'll get back to Grease. So yeah, this movie
I don't plan
starts.
on that
Oh,
ever.
I do. Not because I like the movie, but I just have a point to be made later, or a joke to be made later. We'll get to it. So yeah, the movie opens to "Don't You Forget About Me," or "Don't You," uh, bracket "Forget
Yeah.
About Me" bracket by by Simple Minds. So yeah, this is a very iconic song. That's kind of like very well picked for the movie because it does kind of fit with some of the later conversations that they
Yeah.
have. So it's really well selected, and I do like the bit.
Yeah. I was just reading up on the page. Rick Moranis was actually cast as the janitor, but left due to creative differences and was replaced by the guy who currently plays the janitor. Um,
Oh, you know what's weird? Nicolas Cage was in the casting conversation for this at one point. I think.
really?
Yeah,
That
I
would have been
mean,
a very different movie.
yeah, like a worse movie. Yeah, it's. I mean, some disrespect to Nicolas Cage. He's not that good. He's occasionally in a good movie, but he's not like a reliable actor.
The best movie I've seen him in is by far probably the National Treasure trilogy, and that was about it.
Yeah, I didn't mind him in. No, I honestly can't. There's some '90s stuff that he's good in. I don't really. I don't like his cheesy status. I need to be have him in like a very particular role, and then he's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, on to the plot, I guess. So yeah, oh yeah, one more thing before I forget about the music. Um, they do kind of like one thing I like is when like teenagers are referencing music in a show is that they're referencing real music and it's not made up stuff, and it really helps with the authenticity. It's like one of the things I kind of like about like listening to like Bob's Burgers when everyone's referencing like Van Halen, even though they're all like 2000s kids and they shouldn't know who Van Halen is. But yeah, but I mean, this is 80s, so it makes a lot more sense. One of the kids,
Hmm.
Judd, does hum "Sunshine of Your Love" or whatever that song's called.
I
Yeah,
don't have a clue.
yeah, no, it was the trailer song for like it was a trailer song fairly recently for some British gangster movie. Anyway, yeah, into the plot. Yeah, the we're getting "Don't You Forget About Me" played over the text scroll, which is way better than the last movie we saw in that there's music playing, nothing happening, and they're actually showing us who the actors are, which is refreshing to say the least. Yeah, and then the black screen shatters and they find themselves on Shemmer High School.
They also put a David Bowie quote right in the beginning of the.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a I guess you could call it an abandoned high school. Essentially, it's like in real life. I mean, not in the movie. This was like a high school that closed down in 1981, and they used this for
Okay.
filming. They also used this in Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
Huh.
which I believe is also a John Hughes movie. Yeah, Ferris Bueller. Yeah, it's used in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is also a John Hughes movie. Neat little factoid. Yeah, the main set of this is actually is constructed for this film. It's actually weirdly enough, in that gymnasium we see about halfway through the movie. So like, no, I read that and like imagine like, okay, so if they pan that camera over, we'll be able to see just the library set that they're in the entire movie, which is still hilarious shot idea. Oh, musy magic. So yeah, we pan over some lockers. We see an arrow pointing to a locker, which was the arrow pointing in, and it says "die f word," not fuck, the other one. So yeah, I thought that was going to be something in this movie, but it didn't end up being.
No, not at
It
all.
did, yeah, it's no, they never bring it up. I thought that was maybe going to be one of the reasons the kid's in trouble. But I
Hmm.
mean, I guess this is the '80s, so you could just call gay people that.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, no, honestly, I'm probably hitting a mark there. Oh, jeez. Uh, and they do drop the word later in the movie once, which, yeah, just it was a weird thing that this was in this. There's no gay characters to my knowledge, and like none of the we figure out why some of the kids are here.
Hmm.
We just I don't know. Do we figure out why Molly Ringwald's here? I can't remember.
No, I don't think we actually do.
No. We figure out why.
Ali Sheedy's there.
We fig. Yeah, we figure out why Judd's there. We figure out why all the male characters are there. I think Sheely's character is just there because she's bored. Is what she tells us. But that I mean that could be bullshit too. But yeah, we don't. I don't think we do. But yeah, it's just not mentioned. So yeah, this is never brought up again, which is fairly weird. But
No, and
yeah,
I'm
odd.
reading through the.
Maybe this is just our 2000s minds because that's a very sensitive word in this day and age that we would think like, okay, this is a big deal. We should be paying attention to this, and I guess not.
Yeah, 1980s was a way different time. Speaking of the difference between 1980s and today, all day detention.
Oh yeah, this is actually something. We'll get into this a little later, just because we do gotta get in with the plot. But yeah, so we see. I think the first one we see getting dropped off is Molly Ringwald. Her dad is really just like not caring that she's getting punished here. We learn mother that the later that the mother's really mad, but the father's really dismissive of it. So that's she's basically given permission to just be misbehaving. Yeah, then we see Anthony Michael Hall's character Brian get dropped off. His mother and his sister. I think these are apparently his real parent and real mom and real sister,
Oh, that's cool.
from my understanding. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because yeah, I see this here. It's I'm looking at the cast list. Brian's mom is Mercedes Hall. So, but yeah, there's she's telling him that he should be studying, but he tells him that, oh yeah, we're not supposed to be studying. We're just supposed to be sitting here for 8 hours straight, which is yeah. We'll get. I'll leave this for a little bit longer because we'll get it all at once.
Hmm.
Next we see Emilio Estevez. Wait, no, yeah, Emilio Estevez show up. He is a star member of the wrestling team, and his dad's giving him a bit of a talk about him needing to do this to keep his record clear and whatnot, so that he doesn't miss any wrestling meets, essentially, which is pretty standard.
So he can keep his scholarship. Yeah.
Yeah, so that he can maintain discipline and just take the slap on the wrist and go
Hmm.
with it. I say slap on the wrist, but this is actually probably in theory, a decent punishment for what we figure out he did. But yeah, so then we see Judd's character Bender rock just walking to school. He's wearing three coats. We later find out because he's poor.
3 coats and a scarf, and one of them's a trench coat. He looks like a bad Doctor Who ripoff.
Yeah, I think a few school shooters maybe like this appearance.
Oh God.
This is yeah. Yeah, he's kind of like I get the sense that he's maybe what a lot of those people think they look like. Yeah, it's not great, but and then Ali Sheedy's character Allison is just dropped off without ceremony. Yeah,
They actually pretty much just drive away as fast as possible away from her.
yeah, which she is a bit odd. She is the one described as a basket case.
Hmm.
Yeah, we do get a bit of an opening monologue here about the people being the princess, the basket case, the criminal, the athlete, and the nerd.
The brain. The brain,
Oh,
not
the
the nerd.
brain. Yeah. Just a little bit of a preview of what we're getting later in the movie as the final exit monologue. Yeah, Judd Nelson. As they're getting to a library, so they can be go into detention. Judd Nelson's character Bender kicks Anthony Michael Hall's character Brian out of his chair so he can look at the back of Molly Ringwald's head, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something a lot of people probably want to do, to be honest. I was going to make that sound silly, but I failed. I'm sorry. Yeah, so he takes up 2 chairs. The principal, Dick Vernon, played by Paul Gleason, shows up. He tells them that they're not to talk and they're not to move and are to write 1,000-word essays about who they are. Yeah, we'll get to this now. This is probably a form of torture, not being able to move from where you are and be quiet for so long. This is probably something they don't let you do in prison. At least in the modern day. 80s might be a little different, but yeah, this is really really rough.
Sorry, I was just reading whether or not or Paul Gleason has any relation to Brendan Gleason, and they do not. And I'm pretty sure it's spelled differently.
No one really starts writing the essay here. It's just this kind
uh,
of goof off. They don't write the essay until like the very end.
they don't even write it.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It's just like 1,000 words. It's a bit of a tight squeeze for like a really fast writer, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just but yeah, this is a really rough scene. We get a lot of just like 8 hours, no moving around, just writing this one essay that, even slowly speaking, probably doesn't last a full hour, 8 hours.
No, not at all.
But yeah, this is basically a form of torture, probably, if any one of these parents were taking this seriously. Thankfully, they're not. I get. Luckily for the school, they're not.
And this school is run by an absolute fucking madman.
Oh yeah, the Dick Verner.
Vernon.
Yeah,
his name's Dick.
Yeah, is John Bender frequently calls him that, and I call him that too because he is a complete sociopath. He's just oh yeah. We'll get into a bit more of this, but it's yeah, he is just really harsh on everyone. He is just like really cruel to John Bender's character, and John Bender really does fire back, but it's still, he's just not acting professional at all. He eventually does leave them to find to like he does he has an office like right across from the library, so he just leaves the door open to the library so they can keep an eye on them and hear what they're doing. Not that he gives 2 shits, really. He really does. Like, they talk a lot even when the door's open. It's just, maybe some of this is just movie make believe, and in real life we're supposed to be assuming like, okay, if this was real they'd be whispering, but that's difficult for the medium we're working with, so we're not going to actually whisper. Judd eventually starts joking that he's been here too long and he needs to pee, and he starts undoing his pants and just starting to pee, and just like Emilio Estevez's character tells him if he takes it out and pees on the floor, he's going to beat the shit out of him, which justifiably. Yeah, they start at like 7 too. This isn't like not even like starting regular school hours. We then see like a bit of a glimpse of the principal's office. He's got a bikini calendar in there, which I can't imagine is something the school board would be fine with.
A what?
Which is A bikini calendar. There's a calendar with a bikini lady on it.
You are way more observant than I am, because I did not notice this at all.
Oh yeah, it was just above his head in the thing. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird. It's like that he's not taking that. Yeah, at this point we get the big argument between Judd and is this when he takes the thing out of the screw out of the door?
Yeah, he tries to talk the kids into, or Judd tries to talk somebody into shutting the door, and he gets up and takes a screw out of the door. And then after the door shuts, the principal hears it shut, and he walks in and asks him, "Why is this door shut?" And he says, "I don't know. Screws fall out of doors all the time." And then they go at it, and he gets Emilio to bring over a bookcase and try and wedge it into the door after miserably failing for a school principal to try and wedge a chair in to stop this door from shutting.
Yeah, this is a really brutal conversation. And I think it says something about the situation that no one wants to rat Judd out.
Mhm.
Because, like, I think there maybe is some, like, genuine fear of this principle, even outside of Bender's, like, fear, like, outside of Bender's conflict with him. I think a lot of maybe this guy does have a reputation for being very strict and cruel.
Mhm.
So I think that it does make like we could say that okay, they're just doing this in solidarity, but it is also incredibly possible that he's just that much of a crazy person that they won't do it because they don't feel like giving him this extra round of detention.
Well, here's the way that I look at it. So somebody like John Bender or Judd Nelson in this situation, he seems to know this principle a lot better than some of the other characters. So with that being said, how I gauge his reaction to John Bender compared to the other characters is very different because of maybe the repertoire they have that points to this has been going on for a while and they've been butting heads for a really long time. But he seems to treat all of the people currently in detention with some level of disdain, which is probably not very warranted to um, somebody such as Molly Ringwald's character. I'm drawing blanks on her name currently.
Claire.
Claire's character, who might not be been proven to be this socialite, this person who's on different levels of committees within the school, or somebody like Emilio Estevez's character, who's a star athlete for the school. He treats them all equally with the same level of hatred throughout the film, even though a lot of them are like first time offenders or who don't get in trouble are like pivotal people in the school. Maybe the school's a little bigger. Maybe there's
Yeah, this I get the impression this is a very large school because
mhm.
like of like the things people are in detention for, um, at least two of them are like things that at least through a school I would have been in would have been some that echoed throughout the halls really easily. And I had a reasonable sized school, like 1,000 kid or something. But yeah, this has got to be like way bigger than even my school was.
Mhm. Well, I mean, it's shot in Illinois, where the school is said to be in Chicago.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just like even then, I think like a couple of these things would have been like big stories throughout the school. And it's weird that they don't all know about these things, or at least have heard rumors. So yeah, that's kind of weird. Do we get the conversation where Judd gets 8 weeks detention at this point?
We were just on the cusp of that, getting into that when we were talking about the door situation.
Yeah, they get into a big fight. Eventually, it turns into one of those situations where that's in a lot of things played for laughs, where she's just like, "You say one more word, I'm going to give you another 10 years in prison," but like literally, and it ends up getting like Judd ends up getting like 2 more months of this. So like this same treatment, and judging by what some of the stuff, especially that we see later, I don't think that's a great situation. I
No,
think there's a lot of room for abuse for this.
we'll touch on that in a bit, but yeah, that is principal rather. And I keep on saying principal. He's not even the principal. He's the vice principal according to the Wikipedia page. So
Yeah.
like he's not even like the top of the food chain. He's like one underneath it.
I suppose that's why he's doing detention.
Yeah, I guess, right?
Yeah, I don't know that the main guy always does this. Even for something like, I was surprised this wasn't all a single event, because it's weird that they have like 5 students on one weekend for this sort of thing. Maybe it's such a regular occurrence that they do. Maybe this is a regular punishment, but still, it's
Hmm.
weird that they get 5 people, let alone like 5 very different situations going on.
Once again, I think that speaks more towards the size of the school than it does, you know, where they'd have
Yeah.
to lump certain amount of kids in just to make it like they're probably paying him or maybe not paying him because teachers don't get paid. And by the sounds of things later on, we hear they don't pay principals very well either.
Yeah, they say like $31,000, which I don't think is much more than what they maybe get paid nowadays. So,
Yeah.
or much less than what they get paid nowadays. So, eh,
I mean, I guess $31,000 in 1985 money probably stretched a little better than what it
yeah.
does nowadays. But yeah, teachers are underpaid.
Oh yeah, generally. And yeah, just ever since, especially since the 80s, it's hard to get a pay raise nowadays. Yeah, we kind of get, yeah, we learn a bit about John Bender, the character, and that he's clearly poor. He's often misbehaving. He's a bit of a criminal. We don't. This is kind of like a cycle here, where like he disrespects authority because there's nothing. It's not very good, and like and then authority disrespects him, which causes him to disrespect authority less, and or disrespect authority more,
Hmm.
and it's just like a big cycle at this point, and it's fairly realistic. I think it's like a certain, yeah,
Even while this whole thing's going on, the other kids are looking on like mortified. They're like mouthing at him, and they're like, "Stop it! Don't do it!" and stuff like that. And he's just egging this guy on.
it's yeah, it's just like yeah, the rest of the kids are just looking at this like, geez, one of you stop, please. Like, there's no meaningful good guy here, really, but it's just like, the adult should be an adult. You do get that impression, which is, I think, a big problem here. He's really no different. Like, I think this is a big part of John Bender's philosophy. It's like, the thing, anytime someone says, "Oh, I'm better for you than you for reasons X, Y, and Z," it's just like, no, you're not. You're just doing something. I'm not doing that thing, and that makes me less. It's not that I did anything. Set up the situation where if I'm not playing your game, I'm automatically lesser than you. And he's probably, being a poor kid, he might not be able to pay for things like sports or
Hmm.
any cross country trips. But yeah, I don't, his accessibility to different sports programs might be limited. I mean, school pays for some things, but you can't go to like you can't join a hockey team, which a lot of, at least even in, like, you maybe get a high school football team, but you don't really get
Yeah,
too many high school.
wrestling. See,
A
that's
lot of it, yeah,
I'd like to point out that he could have easily joined up for the wrestling team. Like, what do you
yeah,
need for
yeah, I suppose.
wrestling? Like, you're not exactly breaking your
Uniform.
bank. I guess uniforms or trips and stuff like that, maybe. But once again, this is in Chicago. I just don't see a lot of people traveling super far in Chicago.
Yeah, and he's walking to school, I guess. But we don't know that that's a normal situation. His parents could just be refusing to like drive him to these extracurriculars, which is a strong
Hmm.
possibility if that's something. Like if he normally gets like a bus ride to school, it's probably for a lot of people out of the question that he'd get that extra trip because getting that ride home is an important part of whether or not you're able to go to extracurriculars or not.
And you would think so. Point being here is a school knows about John Bender, right? They probably have some form of understand. I guess that just goes to show how schooling systems, maybe less so in the States, I'm not too sure, they've changed since the early 1980s, right?
Yeah. Yeah, whoever the counselor or whatever would be in this situation clearly isn't present or isn't doing their job because they're not I mean, there is limited stuff you can do unless like they clearly put a lot like school systems put a lot of stake in like the kids telling them something. Like unless you like you
Hmm.
need to get like a lot of evidence in order for people to act like this. And this is the 80s, so it might not even maybe even they're not as trained to recognize these problems, and there are different rules and everything. But yeah, we really get a bit of this in the next situation where they're talking, and the other students are giving him shit for not doing any activities, and he's just and he brings up Anthony Michael Hall's character, who's the brain, and he's also a bit of a outcast in this, and he just points out, "Hey, Brian, you're in like a physics club and whatnot. Okay, what do you do in that?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I we get together, we discuss physics, and we do sometimes activities." And it's like, okay, it's a social activity. It's for their betterment,
Hmm.
but you guys still look down on him. So it's clearly not just being in a club; it's being in the particular club, which is absolutely a thing. There, this is a very common thing, and there's another movie I can't remember, but it's where they bring up that the drama club can't get funding, but the football team gets funding up the ass because there's a different priorities and what's cool and what makes money. And I mean, don't think that doesn't make a difference here. It's like a lot of these schools do profit off school sports often. Like unless it's like a very simple stadium, any sort of I mean this is especially true when you get into like college sports where you're charging people to get into games. It's a big cash cow and they don't necessarily pay those students appropriately. But
They don't pay those students at all.
well, I think they get scholarship stuff. Like
Yeah,
there is like scholarship wise, but yeah, we're not gonna
yeah,
get
that's
into the yeah whole issue. But I think we've demonstrated what the point is. Yeah, it's about being in a particular club, and and this is point that this is a point here. Bender is the asshole in a lot of situations, but Molly Ringwald and Emilio's characters are easily assholes in other situations. It's just different context. Like he's an asshole to a bit of everybody, but they're
mhm.
also just they can also be assholes. It doesn't matter that they're being nice to themselves. It doesn't matter to the kids that get bullied. It doesn't matter that you're a nice guy to your friends. It
It
means
has a
nothing.
lot to say about the social dynamics and certain levels of elitism in, well, not only the 1980s but modern day. And I think that's what resonates a lot in this movie is that it highlights that very well, and it's something that's still standing today, right?
And Judd Nelson's character isn't going. It just is of the mind that he's not going to pretend like everything's okay. Everyone's being a bit of a jackass, and he's not going to make it look like he's any of this is fine. It's just like
Hmm.
okay, it's not good. It's the status quo. There's a difference. And yeah, this is a very emotional movie for a lot of like if you've had a hard time in school, you're probably having some sort of reaction to this. And even
Mm-hmm.
like anything you might have had, like any issue you might have with school, you can probably touch on it somewhere in this movie. Like it touches on bullying, it touches on like
Peer pressure.
expectations, peer pressure, like pretty much touches on most of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could like you'd maybe have to list off for a while before I'd pick up something that's not really brought up. The only thing I can think of is you're not really bringing up race really or gay or transness, but you can certainly get like an allegorical thing out of this if nothing else. Like there's similar
Mm-hmm.
situations perhaps, and I don't know, I'm sure there's some guy on the internet that would tell me that such and such is a closeted gay character in this, or it's a gay metaphor, and I'm not going to, and I wouldn't disagree. You'd probably be able to come up with something very convincing. But yeah, there's if you had anything you could say about high school, you is really some point touched upon in this, and that's a hard thing to do in a hour and a half long script. I think it does help that this is kind of a smaller scale thing. And it's like, okay, a lot of it is just talking. You're not getting any. There's not a prom. There's not a
Yeah.
getting a dance. There's no shenanigans, which thank God.
And I mean, it goes to show just how much this resonated with people because it was shot on a $1 million budget, and yet it like made 50 times that in the box office, right? So it goes to show you how good the story is and how that translates in almost directly into how much it was viewed and how popular it was at the time.
And it has never faded away. This is a staple of modern cinema. Like when you tell somebody you haven't seen this, it's like, oh yeah, it's a big deal because it's one of the big things.
And I mean, I guess technically this is my second time going in and watching it, but you have never seen it before this.
No, I had never seen it. And I
Out of
walked in
curiosity,
not knowing
though,
what to expect.
did you hear any of the quotes?
I've heard quotes from this.
So
Yeah,
it's
no,
quoted
I've
quite
def,
often.
yeah, no, actually, the next thing in my lines pretty much is just like the "eat my shorts" line, which I'm pretty sure is where the Bart Simpson quote comes from because this is '85 and or when Simpsons 89.
89.
Even if you account for like those proto Simpsons episodes, you're so yeah. This is probably where they got that line. I'm guessing.
Huh.
I wouldn't be
That's,
surprised.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because Judd Nelson tells Dick Werner to eat his shorts. So yeah, yeah, this is incredibly culturally impactful. You certainly recognize quotes, and it's very recognizable. This one.
Once again, one of the reasons why I put it on this list is because I knew there was a cult following to it. I didn't realize just how successful it was when I said, "Hey, we should do the Breakfast Club." I was just trying to diversify the films a little more. So I'm not. It's here for a reason.
Yeah, no, it's here for a reason. I think it's good to talk about these because, yeah, maybe a lot of people haven't really seen these movies. To be honest, it's something that's so
Sorry, just touching on that. Just maybe not as much as our generation has, or maybe not the younger generation than us have seen this movie as much as.
no. Yeah, I think this is something you get throughout.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is just so universal, and it is maybe it's almost too mainstream for the show, but I don't mind covering it because it's just something that we need to talk
Mhm.
about because a lot of people don't watch these non-action movies every year. I mean, there's certainly a lot of people that really do like this, and I recommend watching it because it's
At
very
least
interesting.
once.
If nothing else, and yeah, it brings out emotions in you because it'll, like I said, it's going to touch on something about high school at some point. After this, we get a conversation about Molly's parents maybe getting divorced and that they have a very screwy situation there. Judd Bender is poking at Claire's nerves, and Emilio and Andy's Emilio Estevez's character starts trying to push um, Judd off and get him to stop bugging her. Emilio brings him down in like a quick little wrestling move. And he's brought down really quickly, making Judd look like a bunch of a punk. And he's just like, "Oh yeah, I would have just." And Judd gets up and he's like, "Oh yeah, I would have just probably killed you." But enemy and Andy's just like, yeah, sure." We're rolling his eyes, and his tough veneers kind of cracked at this point. And then he pulls out a switchblade, and he's like, I could have killed you. There's just no point in it. I just get in way more trouble than it possibly be worth." And then he sticks the switchblade in a chair, and then Allison and then Ali Sheely's character takes the knife and just
Yeah.
yoink, mine. I love that scene. I love that she just takes it. She's
I'd like
great.
to touch on this because John Bender's character is known as a criminal, and I mean, I guess he's kind of a dick, but I mean, I haven't really seen him do maybe like minor destruction of school property.
Well, there's one thing we have to remember. This is the 1980s. Pot's still illegal.
Yeah,
This is yeah.
yeah, I guess there's
Yeah,
that.
this isn't the modern age when
Mm-hmm,
us civilized countries have banned pot, have
mm-hmm.
unbanned pot, and have stores and whatnot. So
I was just gonna say more of a delinquent than a criminal.
yeah, I mean, in this context, you do kind of yeah, delinquent's probably a more accurate word. Though, like I said, he does have that appearance that school shooters probably do really like. But
See, I don't know if you can
yeah,
use that joke.
no, I'm not. I'm not joking. It's just, it's not funny.
Well,
It's
okay, yeah.
yeah, it's no, it's just a rough fact that I think we can notice. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really, if you take this movie as it is, it doesn't make him look all that cool. I mean, he looks cool in the sense that now, you know what? It's just like certain people do attach themselves to that look, and it's just unfortunate. I guess I don't know. There's not a good way to put this. It's just a unfortunate thing, and I don't think I'm not saying this to disparage the movie or anything. I mean, that image has kind of been probably tainted a bit in this day and age after everything. Yeah, because we don't. It's a bit hard to take this kind of thing not seriously nowadays. It maybe would have been easier in the 80s when this wasn't a thing as much, but just been that's a thing in the consciousness for too long, and that does say something too, because it's if this movie was a modern day thing, that probably would be something they bring up, that he kind of looks like that, and that doesn't and I think if a guy brought that up in some sort of modern remake, it wouldn't be a totally invalid it wouldn't invalidate anything in the movie, because yeah, the idea is he looks dangerous, but in order to get to him, you're gonna at some point you need to look past that. And let's face it, people take things out of their original context and use them however they want all the time. Nietzsche and Hitler, like Nietzsche, Hitler likes Nietzsche quotes, but Nietzsche probably wouldn't like Hitler very much. This is hard because we're just getting into a lot of really, because it's a lot of talking,
Yeah.
and it's more like this is what the movie makes you think about. It's almost doesn't matter what the exact plot is. It's just like, okay, this thing, a couple conversations happening. My notes for this are actually kind of sparse, because
Yeah.
it's just like I knew I'd have like a lot to talk about and it's not so much about the specific scenes. It's just about the emotions it brings up, and just like
Mm-hmm.
touching on so many things. They break for lunch, I guess, pretty soon after this. We say soon, but it's a good bit into the movie. Though the movie clips along pretty good. It's not. It's a lot of something's going on at all. Yeah, stuff's going on all the time. It's not wasting time, which is good.
And I'd actually like to bring up Ali Sheedy's character in this because she makes the background really interesting. Regardless of what's going on in the movie, she's stealing knives or she's, mashing up goldfish and putting it into her sandwich with pixie sticks and eating it. And she really is kind of, for me at least, one of the highlights of this movie.
Oh yeah, she's great. Also, while we're on the subject of lunches, everyone's lunch is fucking weird, with the exception of Anthony Michael Hall's lunch, which is basically normal. It's like soup and a sandwich. Molly Ringwald gets like sushi. Judd has nothing. Emilio Estevez has just like tons of food because he's
An
a
athlete?
bodybuilder and he's a athlete who needs a lot of protein. And it's just like, okay, I was half expecting like, okay, are you gonna give the homeless kid a sandwich, please?
Yeah, he had like 4 sandwiches.
Chekhov's sandwich. And they never, another thing they never do with it. It's like, you could have given him something. He's just like surviving off a Coke at this point. Principal Dick lets them get some Cokes from the teacher's lounge. Ali Sheedy's character pours a bunch of sugar on a sandwich, which she flings the gross looking meat out of. It
Mm-hmm.
looks like one of those macaroni loaves or something, which I always
Oh,
find disgusting looking. Oh yeah, I see those in
disgusting
the
tasting.
grocery stores. Oh, I've never had the misfortune, but it's just like I see
Oh,
them in the
you're lucky.
grocery store. Yeah, I've seen them in the grocery store. I'm like, yeah, that looks awful. I don't even particularly like just bologna, and I just like gross looking macaroni, like a
Mm-hmm.
macaroni salad mixed with like artificial meat is basically what it is. I guess it's. Ugh. I don't blame her for throwing that away.
I mean, like, her alternative isn't much better.
Yeah, it's basically just like she opens up 4 pixie sticks and dumps them on some white bread, and then crunches some nuts or something and puts it on there and eats that. It's so weird, and everyone's like staring at her when she eats it because it's the one thing in the room that's not particularly edible. And
Mm-hmm.
then Judd goes to like try to take some of Anthony Michael Hall's lunch, which come on, take from the jock. He's got like so much food. You can go without one sandwich, bro. You're here for 8 hours. You're not doing the exercising to get that protein off. Like, I'm not a weight loss expert, but I'm pretty sure that's not how this works.
And once again, it really points to not necessarily some form of solidarity because Anthony Hall does begrudgingly give him some of his lunch. I don't know if it's out of fear or if it's out of like, oh yeah, he's poor, let's feed him something, right?
Yeah, it was just sad because Anthony Michael Hall's character just doesn't have the spine. Just like, come on, bud, you got like 4 sandwiches. Could you give this idiot one, please? Could we please just. I only have one sandwich. You have 4. Yeah, Judd has this idea in his head that Brian's life is all peachy, which it's not because we see that early in the movie, but it's not stated, which is a nice. It's I see why his scene at the beginning was put in there instead of nothing because this gives him that characterization because he doesn't necessarily have the I'll say spine to bring that up himself, but as long as the audience
Mm-hmm.
knows it, that's what's important. And this is how you do exposition. You put it up earlier so that you don't have to say it 3 times. Yeah, they leave at this point because the principal wanders off
Mm-hmm.
and they go to Judd's locker where he finds his marijuana, which he shoves into Anthony Michael Hall's pants. Which, okay, I mean, this is where people store drugs a lot of the time. To be
Mm-hmm.
fair, maybe this isn't as weird as I'm making out to be because I'm not a drug user of any sort. So, but I guess that makes sense. We also see Ali Sheedy steal a lock from an open locker, which just fun little things. Just stuff goes away, and they try to take a shortcut back to the library, but clump to a barricade. They realize they're not going to have time to get back there before the principal comes and finds out they were gone, and Judd decides to distract them because it's not really going to get any worse for him. Him getting expelled isn't necessarily the worst thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's probably going to get beaten by his dad, but yeah, they've all followed Judd out of here for honestly a bit of foreshadowing because they're just mostly following Emilio Estevez, and he's just like, "Why are you following him?" And he's like, "I don't know," and that's a bit of foreshadowing. We find out that Judd had pulled the fire alarm. At this point, yeah, Dick finds Judd in the gym where he's tossing baskets and making a lot of noise. Dick ends up putting him in a closet where he starts yelling at him like a madman, telling him he's going to beat him up and that whose word are they going to take, him or his, mine or yours? And it's just like a really abusive situation you're seeing. And he kind of just shuts up.
And okay, I'd like to touch on this here because the principal doesn't threaten him in the current tense. He's like, in 5 or 10 years, when you're least expecting it, I'm gonna come for you. And I'm like, why are you threatening this kid to come after him like later on in life?
And he does say, okay, you can go ahead, punch me right here. I'll hit you way back way harder. Yeah, this is a really disturbing scene. He's just kind of like, you can sense going back into a kind of like a childhood mode and just like, don't hurt me, please. I'll be quiet. Yeah, and he locks him in this small room, which is another thing that you're not supposed to do to prisoners in a prison who maybe killed people or worse or less worse. I don't know.
Think actually it comes down to I think prisoners actually got more space than this little tiny broom cupboard that they shoved them in.
I don't know that it's solitary necessarily.
I think solitary has to be bigger. It has to be able to hold a bed at least. And this didn't look like it was that big.
Yeah, I don't get a good sense of how big the scale is. He is kind of sitting on top of a desk or something, so it is very cramped. And nonetheless, it is filled with a bunch of stuff, so it's not a lot of room, even if there's some okay square footage. Yeah, and we get an idea, like, yeah, Judd doesn't respect authority, and he's only backing down here due to fear. And we really see that the authority doesn't really deserve respect. They're not doing what's best for this kid, and they are kids. These characters maybe look old, but we got to remember these are within the fiction of the universe teenagers.
Yes.
These are kids and they need to be treated as such. They need that sort of caring touch and stuff. So yeah, after he leaves, there's a bit of a pause. There's some other stuff. And then Judd has to escape through the roof. He crawls out through there. Yeah, which is maybe pretty reasonable, honestly. I'd maybe, if I were in his position, I'd maybe not entirely unreasonable take that and just disappear into the night just to get away from this crazy man.
So I'd like to point out that at this point he makes a weird decision making. Like I'm trying to put myself into John Bender's shoes here. I just escaped from being locked in a closet, and I've got two choices. I can go home to my abusive parents, or I can stay in an abusive school situation with these ragtag group of misfit kids, and he chooses to go to the ragtag group of misfit kids, even though he's supposed to be locked in a closet.
To be fair, we don't know that was his decision. He's walking through there. He's like telling a joke, and then he falls through the roof into the library from a very high up, actually. So he's maybe should be more injured than he actually is. Though this is a multi-level library, he could have fallen on one of the higher levels. But yeah, he does just fall through the roof.
But it's also stated that there's 2 fire exits within the library. And on top of that, you're John Bender. Do you really care about going to detention? Like, in my opinion, the alternative of being in detention or being at home, he's picking being in detention.
Yeah, what I'm saying is they might have been attempting to go somewhere else, and then he fell through the roof. It's possible he didn't. Who knows what his plan was? It's not stated. He just sticks around in attention either way after that. You could have maybe explained that he had a limp after that and maybe explain that away a bit. Because he doesn't really need to move through the rest of the movie too much. I mean, he does dance a little bit, but that's kind of superfluous. Superfluous. Fuck this word. We're moving on. Oh yeah, he falls through the roof. That causes a big racket. He hides under the desk. They let him because Principal Dick is a crazy man, and we don't know that he's not going to kill this teenager.
Oh, he might.
Yeah, no, that's. I wouldn't be surprised at a lot here. Yeah, or at least something not good. None of this is basically appropriate actions toward anything. It's honestly kind of sitcom-y that he never looks around harder than he needs to. He's really dumb. He just takes the words of these delinquents. And then they smoke some dope. Yeah, they just start smoking the weeds.
In the library.
Yeah, in the library. Oh, and they just, I guess they go into a side room and just totally hotbox it. Yeah, they're walking out of just a room that's full of smoke. People are going to figure out what happened here. Like, it's understandable that there's no. Yeah, this is a movie. Like, the sequel to this would have had so much shit that they would have had to deal with.
I guess we don't get to ever fully see like a week after or anything because we kind of cut at the end and that's the end of the movie. But yeah, John still got 8 more months of 2 months of detention.
No, yeah, there's a lot going here that we don't get resolved. And I think for the purposes of the story, I don't think it needs to be, but it is kind of at least amusing to think about. Principal Dick is in the permanent records, looking through presumably, I don't know, presumably Judd's records, but could be other people's.
Mm-hmm.
And the janitor character who we met earlier catches him and wants $50 to keep his mouth shut.
I don't know. There was a, they played this guy off as a stooge, like the janitor off as a stooge, and then they give him this little tiny bit of redemption in when he tips off the kids. He's like, "Hey, yeah, that clock is 20 minutes ahead." So I thought maybe that was just a little bit of a glimpse into something that would eventually lead to more into the story. But it never resolves itself.
Yeah, we don't get a lot out of this character. He's like played up to be this big cool character, but really he doesn't do much. He talks to the principal about like, oh yeah, the kids, you need to treat the kids better, cuz like, and like calls him a bit on his bullshit, but not like to any degree that makes it effectively. Like, I think John Hughes purposely leaves this a lot of this unresolved because he doesn't have the answers for it. It's more of just like okay, we're pointing this out because this is true to life stuff. Yeah, we do get a couple other scenes. A lot of this is characterization. Like, there's not much to talk about. I could go into it, but there's not.
What was left unsaid there?
You could do hours about this movie of every little thing, but I won't do it because it's just be a quick conversation and it's not a lot of. After this, we get a bit of a scene where everyone wants to know about Molly's virginity status, which is a really rude conversation that doesn't hold up. I think it just makes everyone a bit unredeemable. It's like, just leave this alone. They do bring up some good points in it, but the scene as a whole is a bit like really awkward. They bring up that just like, okay, if you don't have sex, you're a prude, but if you do, you're a slut, and it's just like a very valid point that was said, if not done particularly well. It's just like, maybe that a lot of this is intentional, but it's just like not great to watch, and you don't necessarily like all the characters toward the end of this, but you understand all the characters toward the end of this, which is possibly more important. And maybe what John Hughes' point was is like, okay, you're not going to forgive everything these characters do, but you are going to understand where they come from. And that is the crucial first step, is understanding what they're coming from. Next, they bring up Emilio's character, Andrews. big flaw in this is that he is essentially incapable of thinking for himself. We find out that he is here because he had beat up a kid and like taped him up and left the kid fairly thoroughly injured. Nothing that would have done anything. I mean, I say not too bad, but it was evident. It was from the description very painful, and that's why he's here. Probably is like you could see this easily be having charges pressed to it, but I think this is like implied to be some sort of compromise. And there's definitely tons of scripts where like this is some cover up by the school,
Swept under the table type ordeal.
and he gets, and we get his character motivation is that he gets told to do something and he does it and doesn't really know how to think for himself, which is like a really tragic thing. He just doesn't. Says at one point, maybe I wish sometimes that my knee would give out and then no one would ask anything of me. And I don't think he really means that because he wouldn't really know what to do with himself at this point because he's just defining himself by whatever people hand to him.
I'd also like to touch back on the situation there, because he goes in and he says, or somebody says, well, Andrew, why are you here? What's your reason for being here? And Allie actually, like, Allison pipes up and she says, oh, I know this. He can't think for himself. It's another character telling him, you can't think for yourself. And he goes, oh, yeah, I can't, I guess, essentially. And then goes into the story.
Yeah, essentially. Well, I guess that's the word for it, I suppose. Yeah, now you're saying that out loud. Yeah, that's exactly what the issue is. And sometimes things are like that. It's just like, I couldn't have put that into words, but yeah, that's it. Yeah, he ended up essentially what he had done is he had beat this kid up for no reason because he was trying to aspire to his dad's ideal of messing with kids because it's fun, and like he was essentially like didn't know enough that this was bad behavior, that's bullying, and was just doing it because he thought that's what his dad would do. And this is kind of the flaw in the reasoning. It's like, okay, it's only as good as the instructions he's getting. And if he's interpreting the instructions badly, or if the instructor is bad, he's going to do a bad thing.
And also, it also comes down to sport pack mentality, essentially, where one person goes in and starts doing something, and then nobody stopped him. They said there was a locker room full of his teammates, and nobody had done anything. Everybody started cheering him on and clapping and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's maybe even the implication that he doesn't entirely feel negatively about it because he just like doesn't know how to feel. It's like
Mm-hmm.
these other kids are a lot like his dad, and they're just gonna laugh it off. It's like, aha, you beat a kid up,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is, and he's in this sports program, which teachers let sports kids go on stuff sometimes. It's just a thing. They get away with shit sometimes, and
I mean, I guess you see it a lot more in movies where it's become a cliche almost, when it's more towards like football or basketball or stuff like that. That they're the big jocks and they're gonna bully people and they're gonna get away with it and they're gonna win the big football game and everybody's gonna clap and stuff like that. Not so much wrestling, but I guess that's where they decided to go with this.
if it's a certain community, I can buy it because sometimes you get a couple of years where like you get that one coach who can just put so many people into a certain position and they just kick ass for 20 years and it makes a big legacy, which happens. But yeah, I think this is actually probably the reason why they have spoilers for later in this, but I don't see a point in not talking about it now. They pair him off with Allison Reynolds, Ali Sheedy's character, because I think that's something he needs for his character tropes is this really free spirit that'll. She's an artist at some actually, so I think this is maybe something he needs to help him make decisions as someone who's really impulsive.
I don't I don't like this scene. For me, it just Because in the scene, Claire's character brings Ali Sheedy's character aside and starts doing makeup and changing her appearance and stuff like that. And really,
Oh, yeah.
to me, it just goes on to show that like there could have been a good moment where it's like embrace your weirdness, be weird all you want, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to make you change who you are, be something you're not, right?
Yeah, this is a little later in the movie, but I think the justification there is that I think the point of this is to show that these barriers are just something that can be easily subverted. They give her she gets like a 20-minute, like a 10-minute makeup treatment and she looks completely different, which just shows that all these divisions are really in real life paper thin, and it just takes a bit of courage to get past them. Though I do object to this and the fact that like she had this aesthetic to her where it was like really interesting and like a lot of this is actually the point where I was going to bring up the Grease thing, because it's like this is kind of the opposite of Grease, where the really preppy girl becomes like a leather jacket wearing greaser chick, and then in this one the edgy artist who's doesn't play by no rules and has that sexy dark hair ends up like just becoming a 50s girl, which is weird. You could mourn the loss of this hot goth chick. Anyway, and yeah, this they get into a conversation about like Anthony Michael Hall's character points out that okay, are we friends after this? Are we going to interact with each other after this? Because we're completely different. We don't really have. And I just thought, a private group chat on Facebook would make this entire situation so much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just have a nice little group chat with a couple friends that like, okay, we can share memes together. We don't necessarily need to talk to each other all the time in person if that's a big obstacle for us. Next, we get Anthony Michael Hall's character's reason for being there is that he had taken a shop class because he thought it would be easy, and then he failed it, which is going to basically screw his grade point average down to a B. We find out that he had gotten a gun, turns out to be a flare gun, but enough of a gun, and he was thinking of killing himself because he couldn't recover his grades because he's got such pressure on him, which is really depressing, and he cries in it. But he gets caught because the gun goes off in his locker, essentially, and Emilio Estevez lets off a little chuckle, and then he's just like, "It's not funny." And Anthony Michael Hall's just like, "It's kind of funny. It's just like a silly little coincidence, and maybe something that debatably might have saved his life." It's those weird little things where like the suicide attempt doesn't happen sometimes, and yeah, it's a really dark scene, and it's not strictly said per se, but you do pick it up, and this is a really well performed movie.
I just like to point out that great 1985 high school logic once again. This kid's like brought a gun to school. He's clearly not doing well
Oh,
mentally, and they're like, "Yep, detention that fucker. He needs a good hard 8 hours to think about his life. Let's throw him in Saturday detention."
oh, dude, I didn't think about that. Oh,
Yeah, right?
oh, that's so much worse.
Yeah.
Oh,
See, that
uh,
this is my only thought process where they could justify it, but I'd like to argue against it. He might have been mistaken for a school shooter and like charged.
oh, 2010s, that's absolutely a thing.
Exactly, right?
Like, this is, um, I think best case scenario you interpret. I guess they interpreted it as he was trying to pull a prank or something and took one.
Hmm.
Just oh, I
Yeah.
didn't think of that. Yeah, that's oh the we've had a lot of interesting conversations about comparing this to like modern life. Oh, jeez.
But with that being said, we kind of get this interconnectedness between Brian and Emilio Estevez's character at this point, because back when they were talking about the shop class, they point out they're like, "How do you fail shop?" And John's like, I'm in shop. It's not that hard. So we've got this kind of connection between the two of them, because they kind of realize that not either one of them smarter than the other, because he failed shop and John passed shop, and Brian's
Yeah, it's
taken
one of these
everything
things
else.
where just like, yeah, it's one of these things where just like, it's people function in different areas, and just like it's this kind of paradox of schooling where you're trying to get everyone to take every little subject, where it's like, no, not everyone's capable of that, and some people just cannot click with math, some people just cannot click with English. God knows not everyone can do like what we're doing, this film examination stuff. And yeah, it's this paradox. It's like, you don't everyone takes all these things to like get you exposed to everything, but you're not going to use all of them, and it's not necessarily something you can tell what's going to be important or not. Yeah, there is a nice little parallel between Emilio and where they are kind of like the mental and physical equivalents of each other, and they're approaching it from different ways. It's not that Emilio is smart, it's that he's just doing what he's told, and it's a very different which can get you to a certain place in grades. It's like, because ultimately if you're passing tests, you're just like putting the information in there that you're told to and remembering it's there, which does get you a certain place in grades. It's not going to get you to like a higher level of mental capacity, but it is going to get you to pass the class and maybe even do exceptionally well. He's also kind of just doing what people tell him. He's not considering that, like, hey, maybe a B's not so bad. Having a B isn't going to be the end of everything, because a B in high school really isn't. It's just like, maybe the strictest of universities is going to hold you to that, but a lot of like just normal people, yeah, you're probably fine. If you're just, because there's maybe like a couple A tier universities. Yeah, so next they get to play some music in the library and they dance around a little bit. After this, Judd wanders back to the closet. The nerd agrees to write all the essays for them, which turns out he just writes one essay for
Uh-huh.
all of them, but it's like he doesn't write 5 essays or 4 essays, I guess. He's obviously not writing Judd's. But yeah, that's just how he does that. Yeah, and then this is the part where Molly Ringwald gives Ali Sheely a makeover. Ali Sheely ends up with Emilio, and Molly Ringwald goes over to Judd Nelson, and I guess it's implied they make out or something. I This one I don't get as much because he doesn't really. I don't think he does enough to fully redeem himself to her.
No.
Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot of just like leading man, leading lady. They have to get together stuff. I think it's. I mean, they do have a sweet moment later where she gives him a her one of her earrings, which he puts in his ear then, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a really nice scene. But they don't build enough to it. I don't think they get to a point where he. They're really just doing it because
Movie expectations.
she wants to get back as dad from the logic of the movie, which isn't great, and it's just like not terribly realistic if you're just strictly going with this from the emotional aspect. It's not as convincing as me, or at least not as meaningful as the Bastic case and the jock meeting getting together. It does maybe help him. I just don't know that this is like a son against the sense that this is a permanent or lasting solution to any of his issues.
Or maybe what's her face's Claire's dad really likes Judd, and they get along good, and he adopts, into his home and stuff like that. Like I just don't see how
That
this.
is a really wishy-washy ending there.
I mean, it's kind of better than the fist pump in the air that we got, right?
Also, getting adopted by your father-in-law isn't
Well,
necessarily the
so sorry,
nicest thing. It's just like,
not necessarily like adopted as like actually adopted, but I mean more so like, oh, he's down on his luck and he needs a place to stay. Let's at least offer him that, right?
I mean, those parents are getting divorced too. It's maybe not the best situation.
Yes, but even when if we look at okay, I'm not gonna sit here and argue my defense here. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, at this point, the principal's left hanging because, as we learned earlier from the janitor, the clock is 20 minutes fast, and they walk out, and the principal is just left with the one essay, and they are definitely getting in trouble for this.
Oh yeah,
Because this is definitely stretching the definitions. Like, maybe Anthony and Michael Hall doesn't have to come back next week. The rest of them are probably screwed. Because they certainly didn't let me get it.
he did not write 1,000 words. It's like 20 at best, maybe a little more.
Yeah, if we assume that's the entire essay, yeah. But yeah, they certainly never let me get away with anything like this. I think I did have one assignment where it's just like, hey, describe a time you used comedy to get through a difficult situation. I'm like, can I use comedy to get through this difficult situation? And they were like, no. And so I wrote some annoying shit. I don't know. So what do you give the movie?
Probably highest I'm gonna give it is probably a 9 out of 10. I'm not gonna give it a 10 out of 10 and on one sole purpose, and that's they did not eat breakfast at all in this movie.
Oh yeah, no, I don't. I think there's enough flaws that you can't quite give it a 9. I think I'll give it an 8.
An 8.
Like a high, solid 8. Just because I feel
Okay.
there's a couple things that are kind of like put in. There's a couple of Chekhov's guns that aren't fired that maybe could have been. But yeah, I think it's still really good. This is absolutely deserving of where it needs to be. So yeah, next week we have May the 4th special, which is also a continuation of our Razzie movies that aren't actually that bad. Well, worst Razzie movies that aren't actually that bad. And we're going to visit Worst Picture nominee Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, which will be very fun.
I feel like all the prequels are actually on the Razzie list.
1 and 2 definitely are. I can't remember 3 for sure. But yeah, I get to watch something on VHS this week.
Why?
Because I want to watch my VHS that I've watched basically all the time since I was 6.
Okay, but like soft definition, like high definition, you could have Blu-ray.
Hey, in my opinion, all the Star Wars movies should be on VHS.
No.
Because I started the collection on VHS, and now I just have a collection that's half VHS, half DVDs, half Blu-rays. And it's very unsatisfying to me.
Because I don't think, whatchamacallit, number 2, maybe even number 3, weren't released on DVD or on VHS.
2 is on VHS, 3 I don't know. 3 is probably not. But 2 definitely is.
Hey kids, I'm Editor Kyle. I'm from the future. Just want to let you know there's a poll going on the Facebook page at Kyle and Cody's called CinemaCast where where the fans are deciding the 10th episode between Chuck Norris's Delta Force and the DreamWorks movie Small Soldiers. We're doing that on the Facebook because there are more people on that. And you can still follow us at the Twitter at KCCCC. We'll see you next week with the May the 4th issue. Sorry for a little bit of audio issues this week, but hopefully that'll be resolved for next week. See you next week. Bye, kids.